Welcome everybody. Thank you all for sharing my happiness. I'm so excited to be here. Wow, it's so overwhelming to see everybody. And I'm gonna start with the most interesting part about how we met, and then what I plan on doing for the next, I'd say 40 minutes. It takes me 30 minutes minimum just to tell the story, but I really want to talk about something very personal, which is my relationship to Hakadosh Baruch Hu, because that's something that we have with us our whole lives, and it was really a struggle. And being 31 years old and not married, it's like, whoa. And everyone's like, how are you not married yet? So it was really, really a struggle. And there were a few things that I learned throughout that I would love to share. So first off, I want to start by saying that I made Aliyah August 17th, 2016. I was turning 27 a week later. I made Aliyah by myself. I had an amazing life in Brooklyn. I taught in Barkai. I taught in Bet Torah. I had the best friends. I made a great salary. I loved it. I felt like I was really contributing, but it was not Eretz Yisrael. And another Zoom is about what made me made Aliyah. That in itself is something else. But I made Aliyah. And when you make Aliyah and you don't have a family, you have adoptive families. And the Syrian community is really unbelievable. And it's unbelievable in Brooklyn and in Deal and in Israel. And everyone that's here really takes care of each other. About a month ago, we started this Syrian WhatsApp group only for Syrians that live here or Syrians that have a date to move. And it's just so nice. Everyone's so excited to be here. And there really is so many people. And you want to feel at home. So you go to Syrians to eat for Shabbat and for holidays. So Rabbi Ralph and Michal Tawil are a family that live in Israel. Rabbi Ralph grew up in the community, made Aliyah. Michal grew up in Israel. They met each other. They live here. And they said, okay, here's a great Syrian family. Let me go and eat by them. So I would go a lot for Shabbatot and Chagim. And I think they're just both fantastic. I would go for them because I love them. And Michal is one of my best friends. I had an Aliyah party a few months ago and I was celebrating 4 years to Aliyah. And I invited people mostly around my age and Michal, because I love her and share everything with her. Like, age does not matter. And a lot of people here are not my age. And it doesn't matter age. You connect to people. And I would go to the house for 4 years. Now, Michal has 6 kids. She has 4 married daughters and 2 sons that are single. Now, I knew that her sons existed, but I never once put thought into going out with them. Because as far as I'm concerned, I didn't know how old they were. So they're 20, I'm 30. And usually her son David was home sometimes. And he was very, very quiet. He wouldn't really speak. So I said, okay, he's just, I never, ever thought about going out with him. I would go to speak to Michal, Rabbi Ralph, David would be there. We never spoke for 4 years. It would be like, oh, pass the tahina, pass the salt. That was our conversation. Okay. 2.5 months ago, in Pnei Kedem for Shabbat, which is where they live, where Michal and Rabbi Ralph live. And I'm going for a walk with Michal. And we're talking, and we both love each other so much. And I say, Michal, I wish you had a son for me. And I was saying it really between me because, and I even hesitated. I'm like, should I say it? But like, she doesn't. So why would I even say it? I said, you know what? I'm going to put my son out in the world. Michal, I wish you had a son for me. And she goes, Adele, I wish I did too. Never ever thought about it either. She goes home. Anyway, Shabbat ends. I leave. She's talking to her husband. She goes, Ralph, I wish we had a son for Adele. Adele told me she wishes we had one. He goes, Michal, we do. We have David. So now Rabbi Ralph goes into the kitchen and David is there. And he goes, David, you really missed an opportunity. Ima and I last night, we went to bed. And you were in the living room with Adele. And you didn't even speak to her. Side note, we're sitting on the couch. We're both reading books. He's reading something. I'm reading a book, a novel in Hebrew. I kept asking him what words meant. And I was thinking, in any other situation in the world, if a guy and a girl are sitting on a couch, they talk. But no, David was doing his thing. I was doing my thing. And Rabbi Ralph says, you really missed an opportunity here. And David says, I know, I like her, but her age, I'm 5 years older than him. And Rabbi Ralph says, what, her age? It's nonsense. And then David says, okay, if I knew that she'd say yes, then she'd for sure say yes and go out with her. Now I need to say something in huge parentheses. David has been dreaming of going out with me for 4 years. Since the first time I went to his house 4 years ago, dreaming about it. I had no clue. His parents had no clue. He didn't tell anyone. He didn't let it on. He didn't send out any signals. And I still am in shock when I think about it. I said, how could no one know? He goes, I knew I couldn't get you. You say no to every guy. You're going to go out with me? Like, I just knew it wasn't even possible. So I wasn't even going to try. Um, and so then he tells his dad, if I knew she'd for sure say yes, then maybe I'd ask her. So he goes, David, she told Ima that she wishes we had a son. She's hinting she wants to go out with you. So then David says, okay, fine. Now they both did it. They said, maybe it's a hint, maybe it's not. It wasn't a hint, but I am so happy that they took it as one. And Rabbi Ralph said, if there's one important thing I did in 10 years of life, it's this. So then he tells his parents, okay, I'll go out with her, but just check with her to make sure that they'll say yes. And they say, no, you want to go out, you call her yourself. And he calls me the next day, and I don't even have his number saved in my phone. When did I ever correspond with him? When I would need lifts to Pnei Kedem, because it's hard to get to Pnei Kedem. So he'd give me a lift. So I didn't have his number. And he calls me and he says, hi, Adele, it's David. And he also like kind of beat around the bush, even in asking me out. But the reason how I knew he was asking me out is because David, he's religious, and religious guys don't just randomly call girls up and ask to hang out. If he's calling me, there's a reason. So I said yes right away. Now, I want to say that he thought, and Michal thought, and maybe Rabbi Rafi too, but I didn't ask him. Everyone thought, they said, are you only going out with David because you want to get to his parents? Michal told me, she goes, Adele, in the beginning of your relationship, I wasn't really talking to you so much because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't about me. And David also said, yeah, I wasn't sure. I said, maybe it's because you like my parents so much. I said, look, that was one of the reasons why I went out, granted, but how it's all about you. And I said, David, the fact that you called me yourself is, I would have said yes on that reason alone, because I'm saying this quiet son of Michal is asking me out. Of course, I'm going to say yes. And reason number two, even though we never spoke, because I've been in the house for so many years, you get a sense of a person. And I was able to sense him. And I said, this is a person. He's so respectful to his parents. And I just saw him. I said, I want to go out with him. His mother jokes, and there's truth to it. She wanted to go out with you because you did the dishes. Because you see a guy, there's only two types of guys that do dishes. And I mean, maybe there's more. Ashkenaz guys and Israeli guys. They do the dishes. And I'm like, wow, oh my gosh, this doesn't exist in the community. So we go out, and after 6 weeks, he tells me that he wants to marry me. And I knew we were headed in that direction, but I was like, oh my God. And I told him, I said, David, yes, but I'm just not ready. And he said, take all the time that you need. And I want to tell you soon what helped me get to that point, and also something very, very important in the process. And there's someone in the crowd that I'm going to say in a minute who she is, that if it was not for her, I said, very, very possible I would not be getting married. And she had a huge role in this. And I really want to share what it was. And so he said he knew after 3 dates, I knew after 6 dates. Now, I could say it was so smooth, and we knew, and love at first sight, and all that kind of stuff. Now, I want to share a struggle that I had. And this is what I've had, I think, in all my dating life. Now, people always ask, they look at me, they go, Adele, we don't understand why you're not married. You're so pretty and you're so smart and you're this and you're that. Like, how are you not married? And usually when people look at people that are single for so long, maybe they're too picky, maybe there's something wrong. And I always hated that feeling, thinking there was something wrong. I said, if there's something wrong with me, I think one of my friends would have told me. And I don't know, like, what? There's only things wrong with single people, and the second you get married, everything's great. Like, why are single people the ones with things wrong? And if you're not married by 25, it must be because there's something wrong with you. And one of the things that I'm most grateful for in my life is I have amazing relationships with friends. And one of my amazing friends is Idit Eliyahu, who was a teacher in Barkai for many years with her family. And all my dating, I would tell Idit. I would always talk to her about it. And she said, Adele, so I called her up. I said, Idit, I'm going out with this guy, and he's a great guy, but I'm not attracted. And she said, Adele, it sounds to me like this is a theme that keeps repeating itself. And if you asked me straight out, what is it with all the guys you went out with? I probably went out with over 100. None of them are good. And it was always, they were great guys, amazing. I was just not attracted. Maybe 5 out of 100. So she said, Adele, maybe you should speak to a professional, a dating coach, someone. And I loved speaking to her. She says, but at the end of the day, I don't deal with this professionally. Speak to somebody professional. And she told me this for about a year. Okay, maybe. Now, one of the blessings of Zoom is that there's so many shooting we could go to online. And I'm going to tell you in about 10 minutes about a course that I took 2 years ago in Israel. It was called Focusing. The course was, you learn to look inside your body. For example, if your stomach hurts, you don't just say, because I'm nervous. You look inside, what color, what size. And through looking inside your body, which is the biggest gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. There is no greater gift than our body. And the more connected we are to our body, the more connected you are to yourself, which is the more connected you are to God, because God wants us to be connected to him. So this course taught that, and I loved it. And later on, I'm going to talk about how this course had a huge part in me discovering who I was and eventually finding David. Anyway, the teacher of the course, her name is Dalit. And I also want to say that Dalit and I have plans to bring this course to the Syrian community. It changed my life. I said, Dalit, you gave me the gift of myself. You gave me myself. And it's an amazing course. Now, I loved it so much. So she said, I'm doing a course on Zoom 4 times for metaplot, so people that are therapists. Now, I'm not a therapist, but I said, who cares? It's not a criteria. I want to learn more, because to learn more about my body, I learn more about me, I learn more about, I could relate to God better. So I joined the course, and there were 3 other women on the course, and we're all introducing ourselves. And one of them, her name is Nurit, and she's on Zoom right now. And she mentioned that she didn't even mention what she did, but she was in Mitzpeh for the weekend at this like singles event, and she was like one of the yoatzot there, one of the advisors, and like it clicked. And then we happened to be with Focusing. After you learn something, you pair up with a partner and you ask each other questions, and you help the person get inside their own body. So she said what she does, and we were talking a little bit about marriage and dating, and I was blown away by her approach. So we hang up, and I call Edith. I go, Edith, guess what? There is this woman on Zoom, and she's a dating coach, and she does Focusing. And Edith was, oh, great, maybe you should speak to her. I said, yeah, maybe. Okay. This is all like before meeting David. Now, well, fast forward, I tell Edith I'm not attracted, but he's a great guy and everything. And she says, Adele, why don't you call up Nurit? Because you were so excited that you found this dating coach that understands the language of the body. Why don't you call her? I said, you know what? Let me call her. So I call her up. I say, Nurit, I'm going out with this guy. He's thoughtful. He's sensitive. He's everything, but I'm not attracted. She said, Adele, if that's the only problem, then you're in amazing shape. And then she asked me a question, which is so unbelievable. And I want to share a few things that she told me. And I will say, if it is not for her, and if it was not me for seeking the help and speaking to her, I would not be in this position. And when I made Aliyah, Rav Yosef told me, I want to give you a beracha. And the amount of malachim that God sends me in my life and people at the right time is just unbelievable. And it's him sending me, and I think it's also our part of taking advantage of it. So Nurit says, Adele, I want to ask you, from 1 to 10, whatever it is you're not attracted to, how much does it bother you? I said 7. Then she said, okay, last day you had a really great day. You said you went hiking, it was fun. How much did these things bother you? I said 3. So she said, Adele, the fact that the number changes shows that it has nothing to do with the way he looks. It's all in your head. Because if it was really about his looks, it should be a 10 every time and never change. How could the number change? I said, you're right. She said, it means there's something internally, a block you have that you need to get over. So we start talking. And I also want to say, part of the work that we did together, which was so amazing, is we started out at tefillah to God. We said, God, she prayed that God would give her the wisdom and the right words to say to me. I prayed that God would enable her to be the shalich to help me. And I love bringing God into everything. So then we're talking, and she would say a sentence, and I'd repeat after her. And then I would tell her where I felt it in my body. Now, because I'm so practiced in body language from the Focusing course, I was able to tell her immediately, I feel this, I feel that. She'd say this sentence, I'd say it. Oh, that's not true because it doesn't resonate with me. And she, based on off what I said, she'd change what she said. Halfway, and I start crying. And I said, I want to share with you why I'm crying. I'm crying because I want to thank God, and I want to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Well, God is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want to thank God, and I want to thank my body, because God, I had this block that I was never attracted to anybody. And it could be that if I went to somebody and got help and discussed this with them 5 years ago, I could have married someone else. I said, but for whatever reason, God did not let me, and I did not allow through him giving me my body, which was never attracted. I was not able to get over it until right now, because I had an inner voice that said, Adele, this is the man you are supposed to marry. Deal with your issue. And it was only at that point where I said, I am going to get the help that I need to get over whatever internal thing I have. And I spoke to Nurit, and we worked on it. And the next day I got with David. I'm like, I'm looking at him and I'm noticing this and I'm noticing that. Now I tell her, I go, I don't know how I was ever not attracted. Like, how could I not be? And I'm very open with David, and I told him that. And I also asked him, I said, do you mind if I share it? He says, no, it's fine. He said, I also had something I had to get over. My block was your age. And it is something I had to get over. And now I can't even imagine, how is that even a thing? He goes, we don't feel the age difference. If anything, you're younger than me. And it really was very, very meaningful for me to speak to Nurit in the beginning. And even later on, I said, when David said he wants to get married, I was like, oh my God. And I called her up again. And I said what I'm feeling, things that he said, things that I said, and I shared it all with David. And David is so happy to hear what I have to say. And just other things where I really, really see, when you get professional help from people, they just have a different approach. One of the things I told Nurit, I said, everyone says if you don't fight, then you don't have a real relationship until you first fight. But David's personality, for those of you that know Rabbi Ralph, they're just not fighting people. Rabbi Ralph is the kindest, most patient, understanding guy. And he says his son is an improved version, and they just don't fight. And I'm not really a fighter either. And what Nurit did, she just rephrased it. She said, Adele, you don't need to fight. You need to know how to deal with conflict. You deal with conflict, you're good. It's not a fight. And just the simple rephrasing was amazing. And I was so grateful that I spoke to her, and grateful that he did encourage me. And there was so many things, like even after, to just have someone to speak through was incredible. Now, that's one thing which I really, really have high and huge regard in terms of me, of God willing, getting married to David. Now I want to talk about the focusing course. The focusing course, taught by Dalit, was incredible. We had this group of women that are all together and sharing about themselves. And because the way it works is you're going inside your body, it's something so deep. Every single woman ends up crying. You do it in partners and you cry because you're getting at core issues. And we all know we get gut feelings. Our bodies know things that are not yet in our consciousness. And the course taught us how to do it. So we're talking about dreams. And I start crying in front of the class, and it's a very welcoming place that you're not embarrassed. I said, I'm never going to accomplish my dream. I have a dream. I want to live in a house in Israel on the ground. I don't want to live in an apartment building. And every time I see apartments go up, I'm thrilled because, yes, Betimna Yerushalayim. But then I'm like, no, but I want to live in a house on the ground. And they say, Adele, never stop dreaming. Now, after you have the class setting, you partner up with, you're with a partner. So I'm with a partner. And also at that point, and I'm going to talk about in a little while about the pain of being single for so many years, and how there's really, when you're in the pain, there is nothing anyone can tell you to make you feel better. I remember, so I think she's on, and I know her mother's on. So Janice Mizrahi Ben Sadon, I would talk to her about it, and I'd be like, and complain about it. She's like, Adele, it sucks. And I said, thank you so much for just saying it stinks. Because you hear people say, and there is a time, God has a plan, all that stuff, you'll see. But when you're going through it, it is just so hard, and you don't see the plan at the point. And I really always appreciate that. She said, you're right, it stinks. I'm not going to try to make you feel better. It stinks. I'm going to be with you in your pain. So anyway, in the focusing course, I'm with a partner, and she says, Adele, what do you dream up about your husband? What do you want him to look like? What do you want him to smell like? I'm like, I could ask for these things? She goes, Adele, it's God. Ask for whatever you want. So I said, okay, homework. I'm going to go home that night and ask for whatever I want. Now, I was embarrassed to write it. I said, I'm just going to say it out loud. Now, I didn't even ask for a Syrian, even though I always wanted one, because I said, I can't get that. That was the first thing I gave up on. I'm like, you make Aliyah, there's no Syrians. So I couldn't even ask for that, even though I'm speaking to God, who's Hakol Yachol. So I said, okay, this is my list. Other than a good heart and like all the usual stuff, I said, if I can get anything that I want, my dream is I want somebody taller than me, younger than me, with blue eyes, grew up in a yishuv, has a lot of siblings, which for me was it's like like five siblings, family of six, works in computers, and has a name from the Tanakh. And that was my list. Now, David has every single one of those things, happens to be. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because something that I'm actually going to Zoom with the women in the class later tonight and tell them what a huge part they had. They said, Adele, dream as big as possible. And I think that one of the lessons I learned from this is that we do not ask God enough for what we want, because we are the ones that limit him. And all of a sudden I said, you know what? I'm just going to go out on a limb, ask for whatever I want. He gives me, if not, not. And when we put our ratzon into the world, it's just incredible what happens. Now I'm going to comment more on the dream theme in a minute. I want to say another thing that was a huge, huge turning point in my relationship with God and with David. I go to therapy. I've been going for 1.5 years. And I think therapy is a present to ourselves, because I have an hour where I could sit and talk to somebody about what's going on in my life. And the amount of things I've learned about myself from therapy is incredible. And I also want to say, they say, Avirad Yisrael Machkima. The amount of work I've done on myself in the past 4 years is more than my entire life. There is something about being in Eretz Yisrael. Everyone's always working on themselves, because since you're in Eretz Yisrael, you're not distracted by, in America, I felt you have so hard to work on your identity and who you are, and you're in Israel, and like you're just part of Am Yisrael, and you're less distracted with these other questions that you could focus more on Avodah Atzmit. And I went to therapy, and I'm speaking to the therapist, and I cried to her for 1 hour. I said, I'm not married. I'm 30 years old. I made Aliyah. I moved to Israel by myself. I try my hardest. I'm on all these dating apps. I ask people if they know me. And that also, to even ask people, do you know anyone for me, was so hard to do. And anytime I ask someone, they're so grateful and so happy. But it was a step for me to tell someone, I need help, please, if you know anyone for me. And what more could I do? I don't understand. I'm pouring my heart out for years to God. Everyone else is praying for me too. Why isn't God answering? And I'm angry at God. I'm angry. And there were a lot of points within the last, my first date was 17 and I'm 31 now. There were a lot of points in those years where I was just so angry at God. I said, I don't understand. Why does this person get married in 2 seconds? And I'm 31 years old and I'm not married. And it's just not fair. And I was and there were points where I was angry. And then I'd feel bad about being angry. And then I said, Adele, you teach Tanakh. Open up the Tanakh. Pick a character. They're angry at God too. And my therapist would say, that's a relationship. A relationship with God is being angry and being happy and being upset and being everything. And another thing I want to share is I have this journal that I've been keeping for about 2 years. And the journal is filled with 2 things, and sometimes even 2 on the same page, with pain and with gratitude. And I really call this journal Sefer Avodat Hashem, because it's all about my struggles. And I think that's Avodat Hashem, dealing with the day-to-day through connecting to God. And one of the things that I would do when I was really at the depths of despair is a few things. One, I would always reach out to someone, because I think if you're really in pain, sometimes it's good to be by yourself, but sometimes it's also good to be with other people. And I would call my mom, I appreciate it so much. My mom would say, Adele, you're going to get the best guy I know. And it's lucky that you're not married yet, because then you wouldn't meet Aliyah. And you do need that. You need that person in your life saying you're the best, you're the best, you're the best. God has a plan. And then you also need the person saying, it stinks. And then you need all of that in your life. And at the end of the day, when I was just in such despair, I said, the only thing I could do is turn to God. There's nothing else I can do. And I don't feel like I'm getting an answer, but I'm going to still turn to him anyway. And another thing I want to share is my great grandpa was years and years ago, was the chief rabbi of the Syrian community, Chacham Yaakov Katzin. And I was in my grandma's house one day and I was looking at books and I saw this book that he wrote a part of it. This is the book, and the part that he wrote is called Pri Etz Hagan. And in it, he wrote a summary of the first 30 years of his life. And I would read it. And then the last paragraph of his summary, when I was really in despair, I would always open the Tanakh and Tehillim and all that stuff, but I would always open up this paragraph because it spoke to me so much being his great granddaughter. And I want to share with you what it says. And then I also want to share with you something about dreams. And then I have another huge part I want to share with you, turning point in meeting David. So my great grandpa, he suffered a lot. He when he was 30, he moved to the Syrian community to become the rabbi. And beforehand, he would always have these stomach problems and he had to get surgery and he had a very hard life. And he summarized his life. And then something that he writes, the last paragraph of his summary, he says, Ed b'shachak ne'eman, sahadi b'shamayim ba'aretz. So he's talking to God. Ki sof tachliti u'matrati b'skira zo mitoldotai. The point of me giving this summary of my life is leman hadot vehalel u'persem nisaha'el. I want to thank God and spread His miracle. Ki yishma kol ish Yisrael. I want every person in Israel to hear. Gam kol dalu me'oneh b'tzarot hazman. Any person that is troubled with the pains of time, whatever troubles he has, every person should know. Gam kol gever mesubal b'tachluet tevel. No one should ever despair from God's ability to help. To every trouble, I see an end, everything in its right time. And I would say, okay, I don't see the end. I'm in despair. But if my great grandpa is writing this, and the Tanakh is writing this, and every rabbi that came before me is saying this, then it must be true. And another thing that I want to say about dreams is also on the same page. So I mentioned earlier that I think a problem is we don't dream big enough and we don't ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu enough. So my great grandpa is writing and he says, Achat sha'alti me'et Hashem. I'm asking one thing of God. What's he asking? This is what I want. Avakesh ki yashpia alai mituvo miyado rechava. I want him to pour upon me from his wide hand Hashpa'a bilti mugbala, influence and shefa unlimited, miyadoha bilti mugbala, from his unlimited hand, lizman bilti mugbal, for unlimited time. I said, wow, this is what my great grandpa is asking. He's asking for unlimited blessing forever, for unlimited time. He's not saying, I'm asking just for this, and if you could just do this for me. He's saying, God, pour it on me, pour your shefa onto me. I said, why should I ask for any less? If he's asking for everything, I'm going to ask for everything too. And this I only realized after the dreams class, where all of a sudden I'm saying my dreams and I see these things happening. Now, I go to therapy, crying for an hour, and it felt good to let it out. And then I said, you know what, Adele, maybe God isn't angry at you. Like, you're all angry at him. But do you really think he's looking down at you in anger? He's probably looking down at you with such compassion. And it's also one of the avodah that I'm doing on myself is to have more compassion with myself and just have compassion. Because if there was anyone else, would I say, oh, what are you doing wrong? I would look at someone with compassion. I said, God is probably looking down at me and saying, I see what you did. I see how you moved to Israel. I want to help you. Just wait a little bit longer. Now, here's the sealer that changed my life. That night, Rav Yosef, Rabbi Joey Dweck from England, he gave a class. And I want to thank the SCA for putting all these classes on Zoom, because all of a sudden we all could attend his classes and do all these things, which was just a dream. And his class was what the approach should be when you're praying very long and hard for a specific thing and you're not getting it. I said, perfect. He wrote the class for me. And he was talking about Moshe, and Ba'et Hanan, Moshe wants to come into Eretz Yisrael. And God says, Ravlach, that God is saying, in my plan for your life, this is not something that works. So this is not what works. And Rav Yosef said that the problem when we pray is we pray, but we want God to fit into our plans instead of us fitting into God's plans. He said after every single tefillah, you need to say, pray, pour your heart out. Like I read in the book, and like I said, pour your heart out for whatever you want. But at the end of the day, you need to say, God, do what is good in your eyes. And I could say outright, and he said it's very hard to get to that, but that's what we're striving for. And I could say 30 years of life, that was never, ever, ever my approach. What did I say? God, give me a husband now. I want to get married now. I'm tired of waiting. I moved to Israel. Give me a husband. And I demanded it. Give it to me now. I said, okay, I'll give you a year. By the end of the year, give me a husband. Didn't happen. Okay, I'll give you another year. And I said, you know what? this can't be the approach. And Rav Yosef said, it's also not right if we say, okay, it's all in your hands, I give up. Because he said that's also control from the other direction. So after the class and after my pouring my heart out and crying for an hour in therapy, I said, God, I am putting the issue of me getting married in your hands. I'm doing it from a place of shlemut, of completeness, not from a place of anger or hurt or upset. I am putting it in your hands. And I felt even like this internal change. I felt like I really reached this milestone in my relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which I needed every experience, all the heartache, all the hardship to go through. Because at the end of the day, we really, really are working on building our relationship with God. And I was amazed. I was like, wow, look at this point that I got to. And then I call up one of my good friends, Amy Bailey. I call her up. I go, Amy, guess what? I just realized that we're supposed to leave things in God's hands. Now, my whole life we're hearing that. But all of a sudden, when it sinks in, it's a game changer. And we sat and discussed it. And I said, I can't believe I never realized that before. And ever since that sunk in, and I think every person, it needs to sink in for them, because you hear it and it's very nice, but it needs to sink in. Now, really, the relationship I was supposed to come to America for Sukkot, and then I canceled because of Corona. Said it down. The flow of life is saying, you're canceling a trip. I had the best Sukkot of my entire life, because being in Sukkot for 7 days on my gorgeous rooftop in Yerushalayim is a gift. And I really try. And then I called Rav Yosef and I spoke to him. I said, all of a sudden, you don't fight reality anymore. Life opens up in front of you. And now I come to this great realization. I said, I'm going to put it in God's hands. Like, what a great idea. So I do that. And 2 weeks later, David calls, and he was the first person to call me after this realization. Now, I needed to be at that point. I was really in a point of shlemo. And David, so I'm like, yeah, you liked me for 4 years, and only now you asked me out. Now, what was he doing before? He was in yeshiva. He was in the army. I'm doing whatever I'm doing. And really, Yeshuat Hashem keherif ayin, when God decided this is the right time, he called me up. And that's it. It was, so I'm going to say it was so smooth in the fact that I got a gift that I knew that he was for me, and I didn't doubt it once. However, at the same point, I needed Nurit, because I needed her to help me. So it was really like this shitu that helped me get to it. And I'm just so grateful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I will say that every minute of pain and suffering, I don't really even remember so much, but my journal remembers it very well. Every minute was just so worth it to get to the shefa and beracha and od that I'm experiencing now. I can't even believe it. And then I try to think of like what led to what and all these things. So this is, some of the chain that I make. So I say, okay, I got to Nurit from the focusing teacher Dalit. I got to Dalit from Naama, Shiloh Plesser's wife. I got to Shiloh Plesser because he runs Eilid. I got to Eilid because I said, I love Eretz Yisrael and I need to find a way to get there. So I said, what in the end got me to David? The fact that I said, I am going to be true to myself. I love Eretz Yisrael and I want to be there. And I feel like now I hear God's voice saying, Adele, you loved my country so much. You loved the Torah so much. You loved Eretz Yisrael so much that now I want to do something for you. And this is what I want to give you. And it's just so unbelievable, because no matter how much I love Eretz Yisrael, and no matter what kindness or good or anything that I did in my life, nothing comes close to the chesed that God has done for me. And now when I sit and I pray and I see everything is filled with hodaya, and I also discussed it with Rav Yosef. I said, Rav Yosef, a korban todah wouldn't even be enough. I don't know what to do. He goes, Adele, every week in tefillah, what do you think we're saying? And all of a sudden I go, when David HaMelech is full of thanking God nonstop, and we say Hallel, and it's thanking God, thanking God, thanking God, this is what it is. We could never, ever measure up to the kindness that God is doing for me. And I'm like, how do I think? And what do I do? What do I do? And then I started getting stressed, because it said, I don't know how to thank God enough, stressed from it. And then I was talking to Dalit, because I still meet with her. And I go to tons of people and I say, the more hachana, the more work I do on myself, how amazing. And I'm going to share something that I was talking with her about, which I got to also from an internal focusing in my body. I said, Dalit, there's a part of me that's resisting. I want to be able to accept all the shefa that God is giving me, but if I'm true to my body, I feel a part resisting, and I don't know what it is. And something that we learn is you don't ignore your body. If your body is talking to you, it has a reason. You give it space. And even though I wish it wasn't there, I said, I'm going to give space to this part of my body that's resisting. And we worked through it. And I said, what I concluded is, I'm so bursting with gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that I don't know what to do. And I don't know how to thank him. And then what we concluded together is, if I just accept the or and accept the light that he's giving to me, that's thank you enough. Like, what more could I want from that? And I also want to share something that David told me, because it is just like a fantastic insight. He said, Adele, the reason why I want to marry you is because I am the most myself around you. And I feel like I'm doing Avodat Hashem by being by your side. And what more could God want than me being me? And you help bring that out of me, and you help me be the most me. And really, the all the courses that I took and all the Torah that I learned, like, I really see coming together. And it's really a journey of self-discovery. And I'm so happy to be a part of it. And I'm so happy to also share this whole story with you, because it's just so incredible. Everyone's like, you knew him for so long, how could it not have happened? And it wasn't even in my mind. And then it just worked. And everything I wanted and more. God said, okay, I'll even give you a Syrian. I'm like, I got a Syrian. I can't believe it. And now something that I'm realizing in the telling, I read from my great-grandpa's book, and he said that he summarized his life for the future generations, because he wanted to spread God's miracles and how God great is. And I really want to do the same. And also the outpouring of love that I'm getting from the community. I'm like, I get an SEA post that I'm engaged. Oh, wow. It's just unbelievable. And I told David and I told Michal, I said, I really think that we have a huge tafkid to do in the world. And when I made Aliyah, I said, maybe one of the reasons why I moved is because God said, Adele, I have bigger plans for you than you have for yourself. And I said another Zoom is about all the difficulty in doing it, because it's hard, and it's hard to be alone, and it's hard I have tons of friends helping me, but at the end of the day, I'm the one that needs to pay the taxes. I'm the one that needs to know how to fix the light. If the electricity doesn't work, to call the electrician. And it's hard, but it's just, it's full of beracha. And every single day, before I moved to Israel, people said, Adele, just wait for the bubble to burst. You think Israel is all this? There's hardships in Israel too. And I could say, after over 4 years of living here, my love for Eretz Yisrael grows every single day. It's more and more and more. And there's no bubble that's going to burst, because when you live in this country, it's just filled with light and love and amazingness. And I want to conclude with two things, and I'll leave time for questions. One is, I really, really bless you all that you should be able to come and live in Eretz Yisrael, because it is the biggest blessing in the entire world. God knew what he was doing when he gave us this country, and it's amazing to experience it. And the second thing I want to do is, we want to give you all homework. That a huge thing for me that opened up my heart and opened me to be able to experience all this blessing is that I asked God, and Michal, David's mom, Michal Tawil, she gives this class Mondays at 12:30 or 1:30 p.m. American time, where she talks about doing work with yourself. And all the time she talks about your ratzon and putting your ratzon out in the world. And when we put it out, God can answer. And I really think, and now I'm going to even continue doing it, that I'm going to give you homework for everybody to ask themselves, what do they want? And after you dream even bigger, and then bigger. And another line that I remember Rabbi Yosef said once, which stuck in my mind, he said, everyone needs to dream the biggest they ever can, because even your biggest dream will always fall short of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu dreamt for you, because he could dream the biggest possible. So you dream your biggest dream, so you won't fall as short. And it's really a huge thing. And I think if everyone for their life dreams as big as they can, and then dreams even bigger and asks for God, even if they think they can't get it. I didn't think I could get all these things. Grew up in a yeshuv, works in computers, like how specific am I getting? I said, it's God, I'm going to ask for what I want. I really think that's one of the ways to bring all the shefa and beracha into our lives. Now, I'm thrilled to share with you this Yad Hashem. I feel like almost it's like Megillat Esther, that you don't see God's hand until the end. During the process, it's so hard. And I'm not at all in any way an expert now. And one of the things I said with Amy, and I just know from learning, you get to a point in Avodat Hashem. And then you realize how much more there is to go. So I'm at this point, and now I have more and more and more, and it's a never-ending journey, and I'm excited to see. And I'm all bursting with happiness right now. And part of my journal is the gratitude and the hardship. And I know there's also going to be hardships. And I mean, I hope there's no more times where I'm angry with God, but it could happen because that's a relationship. And I embrace it and I'm open to it because it's just incredible, the journey. And thank you all for listening and for being a part of it. And now if anyone has any questions, I am happy to answer. Okay.
Adele?
Yeah.
I just want to say that I think it's incredible, not just that all of this has happened and the whole story and all of that, but the idea that you're sharing it, like you're still teaching. You're teaching through your simcha. And it's so amazing to see how you're doing chesed through your simcha. Like people are going to hear this and everybody's going to take from it what they take from it. And I just think you're one of the bravest people I know, coming to Israel on your own and doing what you've done. And you've made so many people happy. I'm like crying and happy. My daughter's watching me. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Tell her. Devo says Mabruk and Mazal Tov.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Mabruk, Adele, thank you for sharing.
Of course. Thank you for being here. Thanks for listening.
Wow.
Good luck.
I'm speechless, Adele. It was magnificent, magnificent.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the lessons. Thank you for everything. So beautiful, beautiful. Mabruk, honey.
Thank you so much.
אדל, השיתוף היה מדהים. אני יושבת בחושך, הפסקת חשמל, אז לא רואים אותי. השיתוף היה מדהים, לראות את כל התמונה, זה amazing. ואיך שאת שיתפת את הכל, מקסים, מרגש, נפלא, וואו, חיבוק ענק.
תודה רבה, ותודה שאת פה, ואת שמעת את החלק שהיה לך.
נכון, זה היה גם שלי, אבל גם המעבר, זה מדהים, וואו.
תודה.